Good evening, cheeseheads, and welcome to the Frankfurt versus Spurs instant reaction show from us guys. I'm John, and joining me tonight is we've got Gibbo in the West Country. How are you, mate?
Yeah, back in the broom cupboard. I found that another frustrating night, but we'll see what everyone else thinks.
And the man who had a foot in both camps tonight because he also supports Eintracht Frankfurt. Yeah. So he sort of, I don't know, are you that bothered, HC? I mean, you are, I know, because you're quite annoyed by it.
I'm annoyed I wasted 2 hours of my life. There's so many things I hate that I could have done tonight, and it would have been a better use of my time than watching that. That was awful. In fact, Gibbo, can we just talk about your broom cupboard? I'd rather talk about that. Learn a bit more about this, because I mean, I know we're going to get into it, but my word, what a waste of time that was.
I mean, Stefan definitely doesn't agree with you. Okay, he does. What happened to Spurs DNA? Is this the great football? Is this the great football that Spurs fans like? What a poor performance, I shall say. I'm not going to swear that. I apologise if I'm a little bit hazy tonight. I've got COVID again, second time. So, yeah, Gibbo, go on your rant, mate.
No, I feel the same. Well, I feel a bit more frustrated about that than I did about the Sporting game. I think that's 2 points dropped. That game was there for the taking, just like Lisbon. We just do not do enough to win it. It's just something at the minute. It's not clicking. There's players not playing well. We start to look a little bit like we're going somewhere, and then the final ball and the final pass, it's just frustrating. I just come away from Spurs games at the minute exhausted because I'm just sort of like all the time, like arms. I'm just throwing my head back and throwing my arms in the air, like hoopy air.
Do you not think that's the thing? Like, I have a feeling this is our problem. Like, yes, we've been playing defensively. We weren't that defensive tonight, to be fair. But we've been playing defensively, hoping that our front three will produce something between them to score the goals. We've been awful. Our front three has been terrible at getting shots away, at creating chances. Even when they've had decent opportunities to do so, the pass has been wide or it's been behind the person. Yeah. And it's just like, I'm sorry, I look at the front three and think, maybe you're the issue.
It's sloppy.
Like, it is. It's poor, and like no one really seems to know what they're doing. And maybe it's like they've all got things in their head about what they need to be doing, what Conte's told them to do, and they're just not playing the situation. Like, it's like we talked a bit before we came on air, but like if you've got a 3-on-2, which Spurs didn't really have tonight, but if you've got a 3-on-2, you work the space. It's not about intricate little triangles and whipping it around the corner and hoping that someone comes. Just play the game. They're all, Richarlison's the youngest, and he's, 25, 26. They've all played high-level football for such a long time. You don't need to be told how to do every single little movement. And we're just poor. We are so poor going forward.
I think tonight, for me, really highlighted how important Kulusevski is for us. Because, like, my 14-year-old son was watching that with me, and he's like, Son and Richard, the ball just bounces off them. They've got they never really look like they're in control of the ball. Like I know people, I love Son, but his touch and his decision making, it's terrible. It's like the ball just bounces off him, and when he goes for a run, it's like as if he kicks it onto his other foot and then it's gone and the move breaks down. And Richarlison, like our shiny new toy, to be fair to him, right wing isn't his position. He's either got to play down the middle or on the left. And he does a couple of little bits, but often around him, the play breaks down and we lose the ball, or we're just trying to knock it into Kane and have reverse passes into... And Perisic is doing it as well. It's just attacking-wise, it is not clicking and it is poor.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I'd like to see Son and Richarlison at least swap for 20 minutes.
Yeah, he doesn't like to do that. I feel like at the start of the first half, there was a time when they did that. But the thing is, like, it seems to be that if everything's going through Kane, right?
Yeah.
Like, if the ball's played forward to someone, it's usually played forward to Kane, and then they make runs off him. So you've got Son coming from left to right, and you've got Richarlison coming from right to left. And what happens? They end up standing in line. And of course, if you're the defenders, you're like, all right, you run over here. I'll just wait for the other bloke to come over. I don't have to do anything. It's so basic and poor. And like, I mean, obviously Harry Kane was getting pretty annoyed because he was man-marked pretty heavily tonight. But I just think, like, we've got to be different. Like, Richarlison offers. We don't have anything over the top.
No,
It just. I mean, it's difficult to make those passes when, again, today we played a higher line. We said, you know what, we're going to stop. Was it Kolo Muani getting the ball? We're going to play a higher line, and to be fair, the back seven, right, did a pretty good job.
yeah,
Right. I mean, Højbjerg, Bentancur, we didn't allow too many chances. They rarely got in our half in the first half, and so you just think, okay, you're doing something, but then you've then got to be able to create something, and that means your front three plus the wing backs, and we can't. We don't. Everyone seems to be waiting for someone else to make something happen, or it's poor. It's really, really poor. And like, considering at the end of last season we were scoring goals for fun, what's changed? Is it just the fact that Kulusevski hasn't played that much?
It's poor, isn't it, HG? Not like poor as in poor, but it's poor from a team who aspire to be where we are aspiring to be. It's not good enough for that level, is it?
No, I mean, we're stopping teams from scoring. I mean, our defense has been pretty good this season. Even when we've been playing defensively, our defense isn't bad. But going forward, there's just no. I mean, it's not even there is one line of attack. That's what we do. If we're lucky, we can move the ball quite well in midfield and spread it wide for the opposite wing back. We did that maybe twice tonight. And it comes to nothing. Or you get a simple... Down the left-hand side tonight, we had a couple of simple kind of overlaps. Either it was Longley or it was Sessegnon or Perisic. And the crossing was just bad. Well, there's no... Like, you make the run to the near post, but it's creativity by numbers.
There's no intelligent runs, is there? Do you know what I mean?
I disagree a little bit, because first off, I noticed 4 or 5 times Perisic making the run, and players like Højbjerg looked up and just didn't want to play the ball for whatever reason, whether they didn't feel confident or they didn't. But Perisic was trying to get that position. Emerson, obviously, we know going forward, he won a few free kicks early on, but he's just not good enough. He doesn't deliver enough for us.
But we keep saying this, don't we? And we talk about formations and stuff. But do we play the 3 up front and stick with them because they are our best avenue of attack? Because Perisic has been good for us, but I don't think he's pulled up any trees at the moment. And obviously you've got Emerson on the other side. Sessegnon's done all right, but and obviously no one else has really had a go on the right. But we just do not get what we need from our fullbacks and our wing backs, and they're such a critical part of what we do. Yet we just do not get enough from them. Don't get anywhere near enough.
No.
I mean, Michael makes a good point. We did have some opportunities. If we were clinical like last season, we would have won the game. But Son's just not on it at the moment. I know he scored that brilliant hat trick against Leicester. He's not on it at all.
I would love to know what brand of deck chair Kevin Trapp used tonight, because he basically just sat there doing nothing, watching. If there was the odd shot, that's going wide. It's going to hit the steward behind me in the face.
Well, the one shot on target was deflected, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank God, because I think that was going wide.
We've played 3 Champions League games, and we've scored twice, and that was because Marseille had a player sent off.
Yeah.
And so then they were defending, and we had the just. But again, those goals were just simple crosses into the box. There was nothing creative about that either. We got, you'd say, a bit fortunate because Richarlison made those goals happen. It's not as if it was an incredible assist. It was just, we'll cross it into the box, and if you can beat your guy, maybe we'll get something right. Like, how many goals have we scored this season where we sat there and thought, okay, that came off the training pitch. That's Conte's automatons at their best. We haven't seen it. At least I don't remember too many.
The set pieces, the corners, they're the only ones.
Oh, so it's not even Conte. It's the other guy, the Gianni, our new set piece guru.
It's not going to be long. Conte, isn't it? It's not going to be long till Conte comes out and says these players just can't do what I'm asking them to do. That's what's going to happen. That is what's going to happen.
From what I gathered, Dyer pretty much said that on Saturday. He said he told us to press up the pitch, and which I don't know what happened. There's been a comment earlier about Mourinho. It is a bit like Mourinho, because Mourinho he was telling him to be further up the pitch.
Now, I didn't watch the Arsenal game. I took my son to football.
You were lucky.
I've seen bits of it since, and I've seen clips where people have clipped up like all the areas Spurs got into, and they could have put a good ball through to set us away, create a chance, and we fluffed them, and that's what happened tonight. The final ball from not so much. a little bit Kane, because I don't think Kane's been playing great. But you take him out the team, mate, we are in trouble because he is our only. Everything we do goes through him. But the Son's, I don't want to get into him, but unfortunately, that's what you got to. It's there staring you in the face. His final ball, his passing, his decision making is awful, and I don't think Richarlison's is much better either. No. Even though everybody loves him because he puts a shift in, but I think he's a straight through the middle guy. Get on the left and try and cut in. I don't out on the right. It's not his game.
No. Yeah, I mean, actually, what do you think of this comment? Do you think teams just went, we know what Kane's going to do now?
I mean, yes, but they would have known that last season too. I mean, that's the crazy thing. Like, I've said this plenty of times. When we play against three centre backs, we struggle, and that's what happened again tonight. Because Asabi could just follow Kane around, right? And if you follow Kane around and he doesn't have the space, then the whole team kind of just stops working. We've got no idea because Richarlison and Son don't stay wide because I think they're told to be a bit narrow so the wing backs can bomb forward. Perisic doesn't have the pace to do it, so he needs to be in that half anyway, which, to be fair, first half, he was. First half, we did pretty well at getting people into decent areas and just the execution was poor. But, Emerson's not going to get up there. He doesn't have the pace to do it. And, I mean, there was one moment with probably in the second half, I forget which way we were going. Maybe it was the first half. And Antonio Conte standing there on the touchline yelling, like Romero's right in front of him and he's yelling at Emerson to get forward. And I'm thinking, yeah, that makes sense if that's what you want to do. But why did you pick Emerson, who is no good in an attacking area? Like I don't think Spence is that much cop. I didn't see him too much, but I was just surprised when people thought he was going to be the next best thing. But he's clearly the only one with pace of our options. So if you want to make life difficult for your opponent, if you want to give them a reason to say, we have to be careful here, like their left wing back tonight was their right wing back, and their right wing back is a converted winger. Like there was clearly something there for us tonight, and we never did anything. We brought on Brian Hill towards the end, who's playing out of position, and you just think, like Conte always talks about. We talked about yesterday in his press conference. I see them in training. That's great. You see them in training doing what you want them to do. Did you watch them before they joined the club? The things that made them like signings that Spurs wanted to have? Because they didn't do these things that you want them to do, and yet they were somehow successful. It just, when the club is struggling to score, and you take away the Leicester game, because Leicester give you chances, we haven't scored many. We got 4 on the opening day. We got 6 against Leicester. And since then, it's been really tough to score goals. That's not good football at any level.
But I don't think it's a step. Sorry, I see that, John. What Adrian's but the way we've been playing, like people say, we haven't clicked. Totally agree, we haven't clicked. But to carry on like we are, that's unsustainable. It will go to shit because that's what happens. You just get sucked into a lull of playing like that, and if you don't start getting results again pretty quick, it will just go to shit. But I mean, like we are in a good place, but I find it hard to watch. It's frustrating, and like that isn't. It's a tricky Champions League group. But if we want to be where we sort of see ourselves, we need to be doing more in those games and winning them, like we did against Sporting Lisbon. Sporting Lisbon, we come out losing a game we should have won. We come out losing in the last 2 minutes. It's just not good enough.
2 goals in the Champions League so far this season against 10 men. Simple crosses, nothing more. This is not good enough. And how sometimes you watch a team play and you think, someday, pretty soon, we're going to give a team a real kicking. Like it's all going to click and we're going to score 4 or 5 and they won't live with us. No one thinks that about Spurs right now. No Spurs fan can honestly look at our performances and think, when it clicks, we are going to be a force. Because maybe this is the best we have right now.
We're too predictable.
If Kulusevski is not available, which seems to be the reason, if he's not available, then what? I saw the comment about Lucas. Yeah, Lucas is a wild card. He's got a bit more pace, but it's like at no point last year were we thinking, Lucas could make us better.
He has one Go on.
We chose to not play Kulusevski for 3 or 4 games, didn't we? Before he got injured, we chose not to play him.
Yeah, because Richarlison had come on in the Chelsea game and in one of the other games.
Worked hard, hadn't he?
And it turned things around. But we also changed the formation then. So that Chelsea game when he came on, it was him and Kane up front, Son on the left, and Kulusevski on the right. And we went old school 4-4-2, and we turned things around. Like, you put Richarlison up against the defenders, he's going to annoy them. Like, there were so many times where, like, our wing players get the ball, and because they're narrow, the only place they can go is towards the touchline. Well, great. If I'm a defender, I'll just run along with you. You've got no space anymore. And if there's no one coming up from behind to help, which, again, our wing-backs don't really do, then what? You're just running into dead ends. That's what the team does the entire time.
Yeah.
And the trouble is, we're not good enough at switching the ball. We haven't got, Højbjerg tries it occasionally. Bentancur, I was thinking about this earlier. He rarely plays the ball in the air. A bit like Dembele. He did play one long ball.
Yeah.
I think in the first half.
He tried to pin one.
He's a 5-a-side player, isn't he, Bentancur? He plays along the floor 99% of the time.
I thought Bentancur was our best player tonight.
Yeah.
If I'm honest.
We
said before, didn't we? At one point, I think it was the second half, he sort of turned his man and drove forward, beat a couple of players. The pitch opened up. That's the only time he did it. It's as if he's been, that's what we don't do.
I do have something positive to say.
Go on.
At least something. Like, I watch Frankfurt a lot. John said they are my second team, or my 1B, I guess you can call them. Frankfurt were poor tonight, and a lot of it was because of what we did. Right? They couldn't get the ball forward. I talked to my friend at halftime. He was in the stadium, and I was like, "We're playing so high up. We don't usually do that. If you can get the ball over the top for Lindstrom to run onto, who is really fast, then you'll get some joy." But even in the second half, that never really happened. Like, whoever the two midfielders for Frankfurt were, it was either Jakic, because he came in after Roda went off. Like, none of those players were able to find a pass. Kamada, who's their creative hub, couldn't find the pass over the top. So we were clearly doing something right. But it makes you think, what was it? Like, because I felt like Frankfurt players were having the same issue with the ball that we were. No one was really able to control it too well. Was it one of those balls that kind of like has a
weight in it,
to make it difficult?
So I thought it was in. I WhatsApped us. Sorry, Gibbo. WhatsApp our group that. When was the last time Lloris was running off his line that many times in the game? That was like his first season before Lukaku knocked him out, wasn't it? That was quite strange, and it was clearly a plan because he isn't normally like that. He'd stay on his line normally.
And to be fair, it's not bad playing. I quite liked the way we set up to not. It wasn't even pressing high. It was just you try and play it forward. It was like watching teams against us, right? You play it forward to your one front man, and we've got 3 defenders who win the ball, and they're all good on the ball. Like our 3 defenders, our 3 centre backs tonight played well. Yeah. I mean, Romero didn't get us forward as much as he can, but Longley did. Like there's very little drop off between what Davis brings and what Longley brings, which is, I think, you could see that as a negative or a positive. I think it's a positive, right? Like, we don't have to worry too much. It's not like if Sanchez came in and you see the difference, but you have to think, like we say this every single time, the wing backs do not work, and he's only playing 3. Right, Royal is getting a chance, and if Royal doesn't play, Perisic goes over to the right hand side and Sessegnon plays. And when you've got others, go on. So
do you think Perisic is going to play right wing back on Saturday?
Yeah, I do.
If the game goes ahead.
If the game goes ahead. Okay, the next game we play, because he's out for 3 games, isn't he, Emerson?
Yeah.
Everton.
Quite. So, I mean, yes, so Frankfurt, whoever the league game is.
Man United, we've got
on
the Wednesday in 2 weeks' time.
Everton the 15th.
Everton, then Man United will be,
Well, if you look at the evidence, then it will be him. It will be Perisic over on that side. It's crazy, but like you can't look at this season so far and think that Conte wants Doherty to play any minutes, that he wants Spence to play any minutes. And the thing is, even Bissouma, who we all think is a really good rotation option, he's barely getting any minutes.
Yeah. I thought he might have come on for a little bit tonight. I'd love to see Skip and Bissouma. But there's no Carling Cup or whatever it's called, EFL Cup games until the 9th of November. We play Forest. Right. That's when we'll probably get to see those.
But they're not. Those players aren't meant to be Carling Cup players, Carabao Cup players, are they? We were all oh, this squad, we've improved our squad, we've done this. Still the same thing, it seems. That Conte turns around, looks at the bench, and then just looks back at the game.
Yeah,
it's exactly the same.
My worry is, he says, oh, they're not fit enough, they're not ready. But players always say, ex-players always say, you need game time to get yourself up to match fitness. Surely, even if it's 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there, you're going to get you're going to get yourself up there.
The first sub tonight was 70, and that was Sessegnon who came on, right?
Yeah, for Perisic.
And then Sessegnon came on and made a couple of challenges. You're thinking, he's going to give away a penalty. Can't head the ball with any confidence. Just looks uncomfortable defending, right? He might be decent going forward at times, but I've not seen that either, right? The one chance he had to get a ball in the box, he scuffed it. And you just think, guys, like, this is your job. Like, really, this is your job. I can scuff a pass, but you'd like to think they'd hit it crisply and cleanly, and yet none of our players, apart from maybe Bentancur, seem to be able to do that. There were so many little kind of toe pokes away from trouble. Okay, great. Then move the ball forward, and there's no one there to do it because the control isn't good enough. It's just
we lack real guile and quality in a few key areas. Absolutely. But I mean, I said this about just going back to the transfer window a bit. We did have a decent transfer window. We've improved our squad. But I said before the Arsenal game on Friday's show, Arsenal have improved their first team. We haven't really improved our first team, I don't think, in this transfer window.
We did that in January. We did with Bentancur.
Yeah, Bentancur and Hoy and Kulu are the players that have improved our first team. Perisic. Like I said, I think Perisic is a good player, but I don't think he's really pulled up any trees. Lenglet did, like you said, him and Davis. I don't think there's a lot between them, which is good, but I don't really think we've improved our first. Richarlison doesn't improve our first 11. He doesn't. Well,
certainly not where he's been playing.
No, so definitely not where he's been playing.
No,
because you can look at the players that we spent big money on. Right, which is, as far as I'm concerned, Bissouma and Richarlison. They're the only two. Everyone else was either a loan or a freebie. I mean, I'm sure I'm forgetting someone, right? But they were the two big signings. Like Premier League, played a lot. They know that they're proven signings. Well, Richarlison's had a chance to play, but not in a position where he played for Everton. So you wouldn't know if he improved things if he was playing in his right place. And Bissouma's barely had a kick. Started one league game? And again,
the game at West Ham.
Yeah, and so you and he didn't play well in that, to be fair. But you just think, how will you know if your first team has improved if you don't give those players that you've signed a chance to play?
No,
right? And I mean, both sides tonight look knackered, right? And we played Saturday morning, Saturday lunchtime, and they played a couple of hours later. It's a short turnaround between games, but you just think we've got to use that squad more. Because although we're getting results and we're winning the odd game, none of us looks at that and think, you know what, it's not like Arsenal. You can watch that Arsenal side and you think they'll win most games because they're playing well, they know what they're doing, and they're fine. And they can use their Europa League games to fine-tune everyone else, right? But we can't do that. We're not in the stage of fine-tuning. We're still tuning. We need to get a tune out of these players, and we haven't done it. All season we haven't done it. The Southampton and Leicester games probably tell us more about those two teams than it tells us about Spurs.
Southampton were awful. I was there that game, and I can't remember too many games at Spurs where I felt so comfortable watching it as if this is like a friendly. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They're just they were poor, but we just seem really easy to, as if people go, we know we're playing Spurs, we know what they'll do. If we do this and do that, we stop them. They've got nothing else. This is what they do. Get out there and stop them. And we've got nothing else. Like, it's so not boring, but it's just frustrating. It's just like this is a slight tangent, but I don't live. I'm not from London, so I don't support Spurs. I don't for living around that area. I support them because of the football I used to watch. And it's just like watching it. I find it so hard.
Are we talking like football on old VHSs that your dad recorded? Like something from your lifetime, really?
Yeah, I can remember watching them on I came in on when football used to be on ITV on a Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday morning.
And the Sunday afternoon game. And I can remember us playing, and it was the year Clive Allen was playing, and And then,
That's true. That was a good team.
Yeah.
Right, fair enough.
Yeah.
And then even we've always had players with guile, with a bit of skill. Like, I'll tell you what they had on before the game tonight on BT. They spoke to JJ Okocha. I know he never played for us, but he would have been a typical Spurs player.
Absolutely.
Great player.
I'm not, but we're just missing somebody of that with a bit of imagination and, but a real top version of that player, not like an old flaky player, like somebody who can take the game by the scruff of the neck and make things happen. We're just like going through the motions, doing the same old thing, trying the same old straight passes into the same old areas. That's how it feels.
Like, I mean, at what point do you think the players are sitting there thinking, like, obviously it was working last season, right? I mean, Kulusevski is the key element here, right? Because he's the one thing that played a lot towards the end of last season that hasn't played that much this season. And so whether Conte has decided that, I mean, because they're both his player, he signed both of them. So the evidence isn't there to suggest that Richarlison works in a 3 with the other two. I mean, you can sit there and say that Son shouldn't be starting, and I think a lot of us would agree. But you just think, like, if that's the situation, like I think that Kane and Richarlison would make a good front pairing. I think Kulusevski, and if Kane's out for whatever reason, needs a break, that Kulusevski and someone else will make a good pairing. Even Richarlison and Son could work.
Yeah.
Even though, but you've got to then, we don't have the options to play 3 up top all the time. And when Brian Hill, who is the only one we have who come off the bench, is played out of position, the best thing he did in the game was in his own corner flag. When he was playing on the left-hand side, thought he beat the player. Yeah, yes, he got fouled straight after. But you're thinking, if that's what you can do, can you do it further up the pitch? Can we give the opportunity for that to happen? There's no way that you could have taken Richarlison off for Brian Hill and switched them over, right? And said, Son, you play down the right. We know that Son can score with his left foot, and let's have Brian take it. It's just. There's so little invention either from the players or from the managers to say, you know what, this might not work. Let's try something different.
Yeah.
It's frustrating with Conte, isn't it? What he's so set on, if you do this properly, we'll win. But he's not countering the fact that the players aren't doing it. Whatever he wants them to do, they're just not. They haven't got the ability. I don't know.
That's what I was going to say, John. And in one way, possibly sticking up for him. But Conte, I think ultimately, whatever people say, Conte will be better with Conte than we ever would be without him. We're not saying like fuck him off or whatever, but like maybe he just hasn't got the players that can actually long term do what he wants on the pitch. There is no. Look at the midfield he had at Inter. He had Brozovic, didn't he?
Yeah.
Barella. And dropped Ericsson in, didn't he?
Yeah.
In as well.
He changed the middle 3.
Yeah,
but
like
we
Barella.
don't have the players like that.
No, we don't. I love Højbjerg, but I'm not averse to seeing us get somebody better if we can get somebody better in there or somebody who can do more. Do you know what I mean? It's not.
I've got a question for you both.
Yeah,
obviously he's big news because he scored 2 goals last night. Would you take Maddison as a third midfielder?
I think Maddison's like if you take out Erling Haaland, Maddison's the player of the season so far. In a poor Leicester side, he scored a buttload of goals, been their best player, probably the best player on the pitch when we beat them 6-2. Scored an amazing goal that game. I think Maddison is quality, and to be fair, I never really saw it. I just thought he was a kind of product of the formation that they played, where he could be that guy in the 10, and Leicester were pretty good. But now they're poor. You're seeing how good he is. He's basically carrying them. So like 3-5-2. When we got Conte, we did probably a January transfer window thing with Romano, right, for Fabrizio Romano, and we asked him flat out, like, what will Conte do? And he was like 3-5-2. Conte's formation is 3-5-2, and the only time he hasn't used that was with Chelsea. But if that Chelsea 3-4-3, you never saw Hazard or was it Pedro? You never saw them really switch wings. You never saw all this intricate. Diego Costa can't do half of what Kane did, right? And yet they were still able to get the ball to those players and let them do their natural game, their normal game. It's almost like he's taken a 3-5-2 automatron and tried to put it in a 3-4-3, and maybe that's why it's not working.
Did he have Kante?
Yeah, Conte was one of the two. I mean, which
and
helped.
who was the other? Was it Matic in his sort of like not in his prime?
Exactly,
Yeah.
Matic or Fabregas, depending on the.
I mean,
Yeah,
Fabregas.
Fabregas got dropped, didn't he, on the run-in for a long time, and it was just he just played those two holding and give the ball to Hazard. That's the thing; he's that good. So,
And who was
Son's
it?
good on the counter attack, but he can't do what Hazard.
Well, at the minute he's not, mate. He keeps falling out. He's tripping over the ball and everything on the counter, doesn't he? You know what I mean? He's touching everything to desert him.
We all say it, and HG said it many times. He's streaky. He'll come back. He'll score maybe 15, 20 goals this season. It's just about he needs to get in that run before the World Cup.
He's not playing well, mate. He is not playing well. He's not at it. And it's not saying we got to drop him or he's shit or whatever, get rid of him. But he's not playing well. He's not playing.
I feel like the automatrons are just in all the players' heads. And some of them are okay with that. If you're Bentancur and Højbjerg, like you kind of know your role. You roll this, you pass it forward, and maybe you can be the third man when the ball gets to you. But strictly speaking, it's got to be the front three that do this. And if you've got attacking wing backs, because we talk about using 3-5-2, that still means wing backs, right? So nothing's really going to change there either. It just gives you we worry about being overloaded in midfield, so we don't have to defend so much. That's the idea of we have three midfielders, but. Yeah, I mean, you can move Højbjerg forward, you can move Bentancur forward so that Bissouma can sit, and that might well help. But the wing backs need to offer something. Perisic can offer decent crossing if you get him in the right place. Sessegnon is just a headless chicken. I don't trust him to do anything really particularly well. And on the other side, we've talked about this so often. If he was genuinely thinking that Lucas is a better wing back than Doherty and Spence, I mean, weirdly enough, you could almost see it now because at least he would run forward and you'd think the defender would be worried if Lucas had the ball. He's got the pace to get past me. He can do something with it. He can score. You don't look at Spence or Doherty and think those things. And we haven't seen enough of Spence to really do that. But it's just 3-5-2 may not solve our issues, right? We want it to do so, but what if it doesn't?
For me, it's probably not.
It will work.
Yeah, but for me, I think it's more as well. And this is nothing. It's like you play two up top, and if something goes, there's nothing. You look at the bench. If you play the three, there's nothing on the bench. Whereas if you've got a Son or a Richarlison, and when Kulusevski comes back, if you've got a couple of better options than we've got on the bench at the minute, at least you could probably try and change the game or do something to change it. Like at the minute, if Son, Kane and Richarlison isn't working, like we brought Bryan Hill on tonight and he just kept getting pushed off the ball. Do you know what I mean? So you're not offering anything.
We've got 5 central midfielders that it appears might be useful, right? The 4 that so the 3 of sorry, I'm forgetting Skip. I was you got Højbjerg and Bentancur and Skip and Bissouma. And then tonight we've got Sarr sitting on the bench and Harvey White. So we had 6 central midfielders that were available at some point. I look at Harvey White. We saw him pre-season play left wing back and thought, well, he can cross the ball, he can pass the ball. That if you're looking for someone to provide something down there, he doesn't have the pace to get past a man, and he may not be a great defender, but it's all again horses for courses. You need to do something different, anything different, because right now we're using the same 15 players. And, we're not losing that many. We've lost, twice now all season. But you don't look at it and think, when we talk about the Brighton game that might be this week, everyone could look at that. Brighton will look at that and think, if Spurs beat us, it's because Spurs were lucky. And we would probably feel the same.
Yeah. HG, do you want to comment on this one by Darren? Not impressed by Perisic. Is he past it?
I don't know about past. I mean, I'm not sure there's a question. I think Darren's telling me he is past it. I was very disappointed on Saturday when Perisic had the chance. It was maybe 1-1 and he got the ball and he was going straight at goal and it wasn't even close to target. Because I'm watching that thinking Filip Kostic would have found the bottom corner. Having watched him so much for Frankfurt, that annoyed me. Otherwise, I mean, I guess what do we want him to do? He's produced a few good crosses. He's got a few assists. That's kind of what you want from a wing back. But we have to be in a position for him to work his magic. And he's playing every 3 days. Whether it's Croatia or I don't know. I felt like when Conte was at Inter, there was quite a bit of rotation, certainly in those midfield areas. Maybe it was Lautaro and Lukaku up front, but those two stayed. But in midfield areas, Barella didn't play every game. Brozovic, Eriksson, there were others. Was Çalhanoğlu there at the time? I don't know. I get those confused. But you just think at some point, if you want Perisic to work, you've got to stick him higher up the pitch. That's it. And for the first, we tried that today, but he doesn't have the pace to beat a man. And yeah, it's a problem. It is a problem because we don't have numbers in the box either. If he does get into a crossing position, you're looking at maybe 2 if we're lucky.
Yeah, I mean, he can play that front left role that Son plays. So if we are struggling with the front three, that is an option. He did. Was it one of the early games he came on a sub? Didn't he? Or one of the pre-seasons?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we'll bring on Doherty at left wing back. I mean, that's kind of
Probably
where I am right now. I've talked about this. Was it last season? Probably, but when Nuno was around, or when Conte just took over, and I'm thinking Conte would bring on Brian Hill to play right wing back for the last couple of minutes at Watford. I mean, I remember that. I feel like he got 10 minutes at Watford playing at right wing back, and Doherty was still on the left hand side, and it was just like, what are you trying to do? Yeah. If you've got the ball, and today we had more possession than Frankfurt, we kind of stifled them completely. Then fine, you have Lucas as your right wing back, and you have Brian as your left wing back, and you say, fine, I am going to attack, and I'm going to trust my back 3 and the 2 defensive midfielders, and basically have 5 defending, 5 attacking. Off you go. Surely that's what you want a team to be. You don't want a team to be 7 defenders and 3 attackers, or the Mourinho 8 and 2, whatever it was. It has to be at least 3. But I think 4. Really, you want 4 in the team whose job it is to score goals, and that's really their main thing. And right now, it feels like all of our attackers are worried about where they're standing. Are they in the right space to get the right pass from the person who may not be able to play that? It's just, I don't know of any jobs really where there's some kind of force that's stopping you from doing what you want to do, where you say, I'm just going to do the same thing. It'll work every time, because it doesn't. Can you think of anything where that might be true?
No.
No. I mean, managers have to adapt. Like we've said about Mourinho. 20 years ago, what Mourinho did worked, but now it's not the same, is it? Football is evolving.
I think he looks
a different brand of football, and so's Klopp.
I think he looks at that bench, mate. I genuinely don't think the players can do. He hasn't got that squad at the place yet where he can actually do what he wants to do. No, I don't think we can.
But what are they doing? I know we're playing 2 games a week at the moment, but what are they doing in training? How are they not getting to this point by now?
Well, maybe they're excellent in training. I mean,
well, Spence clearly isn't, is he? Or Doherty? They're not. I mean, I think Doherty will play Saturday personally, if the game goes ahead, which surely it must do, because it's now Tuesday, and if it's called off now, it's a shambles. I think Becky said last night on the show the club are putting coaches on, aren't they?
He's maybe not Steve the answer, though, mate. Doherty.
Do you know what? I think
Doherty's
rubbish. His strength is his movement.
When he kicks a ball, I always want to hear the noise clunk. Clunk. When he comes out the air, he tries to. We'll be even more robotic with him in the team.
He can't really cross the ball, but his strength is movement, and I think Bentancur is better for him, which is probably why he got better as the season went on until he got injured.
He's Bentancur. Sorry, go on.
Go on. No, you go.
He's definitely if you want to win a game, Doherty is a better option than Emerson, right? If you're playing a team that you think you need to go out there and beat. Long-term option, absolutely not. He's already 30, 31 almost. He's not going to be your long-term right wing back. But right now, I don't care. I want to win games. That's it. We've won our fair share, more than our fair share in the Premier League, but very few of them have been deserved, right? I mean, they've been somewhat fortunate. We got a fortunate point at Chelsea. We were lucky to not lose to West Ham, who at that point were garbage. At some point, you have to, results mean what's happened in the past, but performances should predict the future, should at least help to predict the future. And now we're in a run where we're playing decent teams, right? Everton are doing quite well this season. United have won 4 from 6. Brighton, obviously, are high up there. Like, we're not playing rubbish anymore. We're playing teams that will just allow us to kind of, peter ourselves out and then say, right, we'll go out the other end and score. It's going to get more difficult, and there's nothing, sadly, with Spurs right now that makes us think that we're going to have enough for that challenge.
Yeah, I mean, we've got so. Go on, Gary, go on.
I know I've said it before, but I just find it a real hard watch. Just find watching Spurs really tiring, and I don't, it's just difficult. It's frustrating. It's even when we win, you sort of come away from it going, did well to win that one. Really, we weren't the better team or whatever, or we gave the ball. You had a lot of possession. We've got out of jail there. Son's come on and bagged an hat-trick or whatever. But it's just frustrating, and we haven't even lost tonight really. But it is. I just don't think it's sustainable to carry on playing the way we are.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, at what point do you think? I mean, obviously, we want to qualify from the group.
Yeah,
right? We want to get forward in the Champions League. But none of us. Like, I don't think any of us think our players are bad, right?
No.
But we are not getting the best from them. Whether they're playing every game or whether they're not playing every game, we are not getting what we could. And to me, that's the manager's job. So I understand that he says that this is what I want. Like, I'm not saying get rid of Conte. I want Conte to stay and figure it out. I really do, right? But that really is your thing. Like, either you build a system like Guardiola has done and like Klopp has done and said, I'm going to go out and buy the players who I know can play the way I want to play. But because his system is based on learning something, maybe he genuinely thinks that any player can do what he wants them to do. And there aren't such specifics as, I need my wing-backs to be super fast, or I need them to... It's like your ability on the ball is almost more important than your physical characteristics. Well, I think we're seeing that that's not true. He's been there almost a year, right? We've had a few extra players come in the summer, but a lot of those players now have been there 6 to 8 months. Or they've been there 3 months, 4 months when people signed up. Is it 3 months since preseason started? That should be enough time for these players to know enough that they get a few minutes, right? Like, no one's expecting them to get grade A's from day one, but you've got to use. We know this. We've got to use our players. Everyone was tired. Frankfurt have got the same kind of routine as us when it comes to playing games right now. So of course, and they didn't change their first 11 at all. I don't think, and they had one injury, so they didn't change much, and they were exhausted after about 75, 80 minutes. So at some point we have to figure out, I don't care if Conte doesn't like rotation, he doesn't want to do it, but we need to do it. We will get picked off easily by those teams like Brighton, who were playing one game a week and full of confidence. They lost their manager and they went to Anfield and got a point, and they probably could and should have won that game. It's Spurs right now. If anything, you look at our league position and you think it's a bit false. Really,
because Brighton,
we shouldn't be that high.
Brighton, we surrender possession, and Brighton are a team who are happy in possession. So it's just like, the more you give them possession, the more you allow them to have it. I know we say, we don't mind them having it there because they'll cross it in. But if you keep allowing them to have possession there, and they keep putting crosses in or keep getting in positions to get balls in, eventually, if you're not doing it up the other end,
and we're not. We look so toothless going forward. That if you're that Brighton defence, you're like, oh well, they'll never score. They can try till they're till the cows come home. They are not going to get it right and test our goalkeeper. And Brighton's goalkeeper is nothing special, but it's sad when you know you've got these world-class forwards and these brilliant midfielders who clearly can work together, and for whatever reason it isn't. And I say that we played better probably tonight than we did in Lisbon, right? Yeah. But we didn't create anything. Kevin Trapp had one shot to save. Everything else.
Well, I think we did create some stuff. The just shooting was terrible.
But then I remember the Son chance. That was the best one of the game for us.
There was a Son chance. There was the one where Son crossed it far. Kane had an open goal. If Sonny got the cross properly, and there was a couple of other ones as well.
In first half, there was
I do get your point.
First half, I think from a free kick, Romero could have headed it, and then Kane missed it. But it's just like, I don't expect our front three to get it right now. Right now, I really don't expect it, and it shouldn't be this way. We have to have something different. Like, even if we play 3-5-2 and it doesn't work, all right, fine. At least you can say you've tried. But when the 3-4-3 is repeatedly not working, and the only thing that is getting us results is the fact that one goes in at the end of the game, or a shinner or whatever, finally we get the chance at Wolves and it goes in because he's 2 yards out, can't miss. Or the Forest game where we score super early and then we're the second best team pretty much right to the end when we get a penalty. Forest are bottom of the league and they outplayed us.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just because we allowed them to, right? We didn't just say, right, you have the ball. They outplayed us completely. Despite
Tempo's
being
higher.
league,
Tempo's higher. They're upping at them, and we sort of like. There's times when we get the ball at the back, and we're just sort of happily strolling up the pitch slowly, so the other team can get back in shape and get in the positions they want to. And it's just like, let's have some urgent, I know people do, but Arsenal, they commit bodies forward. They play with some purpose. They've been working. I know Arteta's been there for a long time, but you think if we had that bit of energy in some games, more sort of like on the front foot, at least get a few goals and go for it. But it's even 0-0 and we're after a goal and we're still just plodding up the field, passing it into the midfield, getting it back, passing it along the back four, letting like the other teams are just happy to sit back. It's fucking frustrating.
The thing with it sounds crazy to say, but obviously Man City and Liverpool have been the best two teams for a long time, and Arsenal appear right now to be joining them, right? And it's not because Arteta and Klopp and Guardiola, they don't do automatons. They clearly do have a designed way of playing, and every player knows their job and they can do it. But it doesn't look that way. With our players, it looks like they're thinking about what they need to do before they've got the ball, which is why the ball bounces off them all the time, because they're not comfortable. And if they're not comfortable now, maybe we can just go back to an old school 4-2-3-1 and see what Son can do, or we can change things up a little bit. It's sad to me that I feel like our best performances so far have been almost more reliant on a 4-4-2 when we've needed to do it, rather than the 3-4-3 that we're trying to do.
I mean, it was a 5-3-2, wasn't it? The last 20 minutes against Leicester, but yeah, against Chelsea, you're right. I'm just going to interrupt. We've got 82 people watching and only 27 likes. Please, can you click the like button for us? It helps us out a lot and gets the show out there. Happy days. We've got most games are won and lost in midfield. Yeah, fair point, Adrian. Our two-man midfield have grit but lack consistency to help. I think not maybe consistency. I think they just get outmanned too often. And when Kulusevski there, he quite often will drop in to help. But Richarlison's not that player.
So somebody put it in there earlier, John. Like the mid, that they do get around with it, but neither of them really carry the ball forward, bring us higher up the pitch, do they? And they tend to play little balls and not really incisive passes to get us away or split defenses or whatever. They just, they both do a decent job at what they do, what they're asked to do. But if you sort of want to get to the level where I think I want to see Spurs, we need someone out, either someone else in there who can do it, or we need more from those two.
It's one of those we think with Spurs right now, like the homegrown quota is not a massive issue, but when you look at the ones we have, like outside of Kane, who may well be leaving in 18 months, right? At the latest, outside of Kane, you don't look at them and think, okay, they're the type of players that we want. So even if we end up having to spend a lot of money for Maddison, right, it would be worth it because that someone like that is going to be good enough. And so whatever English players we end up going for, like Skip's not getting a kick. Sessegnon to me is not good enough. I don't know whether you play him as a winger or as a fullback or as a wing back. Something just isn't there. And he looked nervous before Conte showed up. So asking Sessegnon to do extra things that have been pre-planned seems to be a problem. It's such a shame because we do have a decent squad and we have a world-class manager who is stubborn to the point where it's just terrible.
What do you think of Paul's question there? Was that Son's worst performance in recent memory in the second half?
I felt, like I said, he was poor. Just he's not putting the effort in or doing anything. It's just his touch. I think, was there a game he wasn't very good at Sporting, was he? I thought he was awful in that game. And I'm sure there was another game where he was really poor. But tonight,
they all blend now.
Yeah,
I mean, he wasn't great at Arsenal, to be fair.
In the second half, to be fair to Paul, I was sat there with my son and I just said, he's winding me up now. My son was just watching him, was winding me up because just like I said, it bounces off him, or his pass is poor, or he runs into someone, or someone he was running into areas where like Kane was knocked to pass, or someone did, and it hit him because he just sort of like he's running. He doesn't really know feels like he doesn't know what he's doing, and which he obviously does. He's a quality player, but
no, like Son works best in space.
Yeah,
like, that's simple, right? He always has done. He works best in space. And he's not really playing any. He's got his back to goal most of the time when he's got the ball. The problem is the odd time he gets some space because he's thinking too much, then he loses it. So right now he's doing nothing of any value to us because he's not great defensively either. Like even there was a corner in first half and we played it short, and it was like, why? Like don't just like Perisic can cross a ball, right? So just let him do it.
All he had to do was play it back to Perisic, who was in space at that point.
Right.
But he got tackled.
And you just think, come on. Like poor decisions from everyone involved with Spurs right now. There are poor decisions all over the shop. And yeah, like were we lucky to concede none? No. Were we lucky to score none? Definitely not. That game was like, I mean, the guy at the end of the game on German TV said it was a really good game of football. And I was like, no, it wasn't. It was like watching kids run around who don't know what they're doing. Like the only competent unit on the pitch tonight was our back three, really, because they did their job. Everyone else just looked like they didn't really know what their job was.
When we play as we're playing as well, I know there's a bit of I thought Kane was all right at times, not good at others. But when we play as we are at the minute, the reliance and the expectation and pressure on Kane becomes more and more. Like when he went down and hurt his knee, you're like, oh my God, if we lose him. Do you know what I mean? It's because there is nothing else. There is no other avenue of creativity in that. Like Son's a brilliant player, but he's not a creative player. He's an explosive, instinctive player. Richarlison's a bit like that as well. But Kane, everything you could see in that second half, everything was going into Kane, and then we were trying to play off him because that is that there's nothing else, and just we become even more reliant on him to the point like when we were sort of under Jose, that's what was happening then.
What do you mean? Like I was thinking about Mourinho's system just now. Like we had the whole kind of it was a 4-2-3-1, but one of our fullbacks would go forward, and it was almost like a 3-2-4-1 for most of it. But it was the idea that if we've got the ball, you've got your 3 defenders, you've got your 2 midfielders, and then you've got 5 trying to do something, right? And if you don't have the ball, then you add your 4 defenders, your 2 midfielders, and maybe 4 attackers. So even he realized, right, even though it was really defensive football, even he realized that you need to have numbers going forward because most teams will defend in numbers.
It doesn't feel to me
difficult. Go on.
Doesn't feel to me like we have 5 going forward, though, does it? I get what you're saying, but with our wing backs, it doesn't feel like when we do go forward with our front 3 and the wing backs at the minute, it doesn't feel like just feels like they're sort of like in them doing what they do out wide. They just don't contribute enough.
That would make sense, right? Like if you've got Emerson and you've got Perisic higher up the pitch, then maybe you can say, you know what, Kane might drop deep, and then the other 2 can make runs off him, and it would it make life difficult for the central defenders, and it could work. But when you offer no real threat down either wing, you've got to then move the ball forward into places where Perisic might become a threat because we know he's got a decent cross. We know he can provide in good areas. But on the other side, it's not there. So, again, I find it really difficult that, was it the first chance in the second half where they flipped the ball over the top and Emerson played the runner on? Yeah. And you're thinking, like, they've got a converted winger playing wing back, right? Yeah. So he might offer you something going forward, and we've got one in Perisic, but their other one was a midfielder. The guy who played right wing back to start with is a central midfielder by trade, and we've got a fullback trying to do it. Like I would trust a midfielder to at least have some understanding of when to go forward and what to do. I don't expect these players to be good at what they're not good at doing. And I don't expect them to learn it when they get maybe 2 training sessions a week because they're playing so many games and traveling so much.
So Darren's got a question here. What football is worse, Conte or Jose? Gibbo?
Jose was poor. Probably with lesser players, to be fair, but definitely Jose.
Yeah, no, weirdly enough, I would agree with that because the reason why I can say that is because we all remember last season when Conte's football was going great guns. Yeah. So we know it's there. We know it can work. We know we can do it. And our players haven't really changed that much.
People are sort of finding out a bit how we play, obviously. But it's like, like I said, Kulusevski's injured now. We chose not to play him for 2 or 3 games before. We chose to not play him and keep Son in the team when he was playing poor and put Richarlison in. We chose to sacrifice Kulusevski for Richarlison. And then, like I said, you watch tonight and you can see that he is a far better player than Richarlison technically from what he can do. And I'm not saying Richarlison's a poor player. Like I've said before, I don't think right forward is for him. Kulusevski's a far better player, far more creative. His passing's better, his decision-making is better. And his decision-making is better than Son's as well. He's not a better player than Son. Obviously, Son on it scores goals, but the front 3 we've got at the minute and the way they're playing just isn't really clicking. It's not working. It feels to me like they're just shoehorning all 3 of them in.
We watched those first 2 or 3 games when Richarlison was on the bench and come on and done something well, and Son wasn't playing well. We thought, all right, well, Richarlison can come in for Son. None of us. I mean, I remember having this conversation with Irish Hotspur, right? And he was like, "You got to keep Son in because he'll play himself into form." And I was like, "Well, no, like that. Like, maybe he felt that way too." I really can't remember what he said, but it's almost like that was the obvious choice, right? Like, Son's not playing well, Richarlison's coming on and doing well. Let's go with that, and we didn't. For whatever reason, we didn't. We decided to ride with Son, and it hasn't really worked.
No. Ironically, though, John, you put this up like you're about to. It's the performance, and it's frustrating. But we got 2 home games in a row now, haven't we? So
it's in our hands.
The point was a good
really
point.
Tight group.
The point was a good point tonight. I think for myself, I can't speak for HG. The frustrating bit is we should. I think if we'd have done a bit more, that game was there for the taking, which is exactly how I felt against Sporting, and we lost that one. But I think their points dropped tonight. I really do.
I think there's a lot of movement to happen in this group still in the next 3 games, but we have to win against Frankfurt at home.
Well, we win the next 2 home games. I think we're through. We should be through with 2 wins.
10 points normally gets you through, but there's a lot of interchanging, isn't there? It's going to be a tight group.
I'm trying to work out, like, if we did win our 2 games, then we'd have 10. Sporting could have 9 maximum, right? So 10-9. Yeah, that might see us through, depending on what happens in the Marseille-Frankfurt game. But like, I'm worried that the Sporting game isn't just that we lost, right? It's the loss that we lost by 2, because that means if we beat them by 1 and we finish level, they will go through, right? And Sporting have that over Frankfurt too, because they won that first game 3-0. And I don't see Frankfurt going to Lisbon and equalise, getting the same kind of score. So Sporting have a pretty good situation. The fact that if they finish level on points with Spurs or Frankfurt, they might be all right. Of course, then they lose to Marseille. Was it 4-1 tonight?
Well, they don't have it then. They man sent off quite early, so you're going to get that effect. But, I mean, if I just scroll up,
we're in good shape. It's in our, we're still in a decent position.
That's the better phrase. I don't think we're in good shape because we're playing poorly and don't look like scoring.
Well, I just mean if it's hard. Like, I look at it thinking from what I've seen of Sporting and Frankfurt, we should be beating them at home. We should. I'm not saying we will, obviously, and we're not playing great. But I think to myself,
Sporting, I think we should. But the Frankfurt game, I'm a bit nervous because Frankfurt, I can't imagine they'll play that badly again. I mean, maybe they will, but that was a poor performance from them. Absolutely, and I do think we had a lot to do with that. So maybe we could do that again. But again, if you're talking about rotation, well, if that Brighton game goes ahead, well, that's a big game. So who are you going to rotate then? And then Frankfurt comes, this time next week. Or are you going to rotate for that? Like, when is the rotation going to happen? Everton, Man United? Is it? Or are we just going to have players get injured and then hope to see the next person up?
I don't think we're going to see a lot of rotation.
No, it worries. He's mentioned it, but he hasn't done it, and that's what's worrying.
I don't think you'll see a lot. I genuinely think we've had 2 injuries, Lucas and Kulusevski, and you look at the bench now and it looks thin going forward. And I think we're at the same point as what he said last season. I think he just turns around, looks behind him and thinks, not a lot I can do, so I'll just stick with what I've got.
I would love to know who Spurs were really after. Like when Brian Hill was on his way to Valencia and we were looking for someone, I'd love to know who it was, right? And if it's someone that could have solved the issues that we're facing, whether it was a creative midfielder or a Kulusevski clone or someone that could have done those things. Because even before the season started, Conte was talking about moving Lucas to right back. So something has to have been afoot, but
that late,
wouldn't know what.
That late in the transfer window, I'm thinking maybe someone like that Malinovsky, who they were talking about. It wouldn't have, I'm not saying but it would have been it wouldn't have been the Maddison. Those sorts of deals don't happen then. It would have been someone slightly better. I
think once Leicester realised they were selling Fofana, for a load of money,
they didn't need it.
That was it. They didn't need it, and that was the deal. But
no,
I mean there's a contract offer on the table for Maddison, but I'm not sure he's going to sign it.
Of course
he's got what 20 months left on his contract. So next summer there's a good chance to go, but they're also going to lose Tielemans, who is on a free next summer. So
you don't want to be able to ransom. We don't want to be able to ransom, mate. But we're at a point now where if there's a player out there you want, you've got to go out there and push the boat out. If that's what they need to do, that's what they're going to have to do. I mean, and unfortunately, you've got to spend.
January's not easy though, is it? As we saw last year.
No.
We all thought we'd sign 3 or 4. We signed 2 admittedly quality players. Now, if we can get 1 quality player in January, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
So if we knew... Sorry, HD, but if we knew Hill was going, why don't we sort it out earlier? Get him gone and sort the player they want earlier, because they must have had some idea. Why are we waiting and then it falls through and then we're in that position?
Because some clubs won't sell until it's the right moment for them, right?
Yeah.
We have to think, with Bentancur and Kulusevski, Juventus fans were gleeful that we were spending this money on them. So, and they weren't wanted by that club, right? Even though Juventus are, is now struggling, they weren't wanted. That's what the January transfer is for players who are, got 6 months left on their contract, and so clubs are desperate to sell because they'll get something, or for basically players that clubs are desperate to sell because they don't want them. Do you know what I mean? It's like that's what the January thing is. So if we look around and we see players that aren't really being played that often, in the same way that clubs will look at our players who aren't being played that often and think, oh, but maybe we can get Brian Hill on loan.
I think
we can get Tanganga on loan.
I think Dave's right in the comments.
5
Davo. I think he said Zaniolo was the guy they wanted.
I'm just going to comment on this one here, David Clark. No, 2 is we've got a number of players on 2. But that's the most any of our players in the Premier League have got.
Oh, wow.
Obviously. Sorry, which one has Davo said?
Davo.
This one here.
Yeah, I think that's probably somewhere nearer the truth.
He was to replace him. Yeah.
HG said a Kulusevski clone. I've not seen enough of him to say he's a Kulusevski clone, but he looks like he could fulfill that role from the, obviously, YouTube clips I'd seen. Yeah. Powerful, quick, left-footed, can cut in, can play in a few roles. I think that's probably what they were looking at.
Yeah.
Right,
guys.
Go on.
I was just going to say, we've been going over an hour. We're only going to 25 minutes, weren't we? HG will be back on Friday, hopefully.
Yeah.
I'm
not talking about that again.
No. Maybe you can join late because Cole will be there showing us how to barbecue. Apparently, he's got some lessons or something. And he'll be joined by Jack, who's a bit of a regular now, along with his sidekick, the Irish Hotspur. So, and HG and Irish always have a little scuffle about something.
Enjoy HG.
There'll be something. So that should be a really good show. Previewing the Brighton game if it's on, and also they'll be picking the the bones out of this game. Maybe HG will just sit there quietly.
Yeah, no one's really going to want to talk about that. I don't know, but yeah, well, it should be good. I'm looking forward to Friday because, like, as much as I don't like watching Spurs, I'm still excited that there's a game every 3 days. I am, even if I regret it afterwards. I will watch that Brighton game and I will enjoy it. The anticipation that Spurs might play well, maybe I'll enjoy that. But yeah, just
and HG, fair play to you, because I'm at the minute. Don't get me wrong. I want us, but I don't really enjoy watching us play. I watch it because I love Spurs, but I don't enjoy it. So
maybe there's nothing else going on. Maybe that's
it.
I don't know. But...
Yeah. So on that note, I'm going to say thanks, chaps, and come
no
on, you
problem,
Spurs.
mate. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. Yes.